Hi, friends. Thank you for joining us today. We are Nathaniel and Amy White with the Homemade Family. Just a reminder that if you would like to hear more of our podcasts, you may do so on our website at www.thehomemadefamily.com. Or you can hear us, you got volume there, or you can hear us on YouTube. Just search Nathaniel and Amy White, the Homemade Family, or check us out on our Facebook pages or anywhere podcasts are found. Search for Insight Now and then listen in to Nathaniel and Amy White, the Homemade Family podcast. With that, we are going to jump into today's broadcast. We are doing part 2 of raising versus training our children. And I'm sorry, I thought I had everything silenced here, but let's silence that. Oh, goodness. So,
raising versus training.
Raising versus training. When I was a young girl, a young teenager, I had the dream that every teenage girl had, which was to raise and ride horses. And as a matter of fact, I did own horses and I loved training horses too. I subscribed to a newsletter by John Lyons. He was a great horse trainer, and something that he said really stuck with me. He said it's called riding horses, which is an action verb, not sitting on horses, but riding horses, which actually meant that there was action involved. And I feel like that's a great example of the verb parenting. Parenting is an action verb, and parenting requires training versus just raising. Yes, we're raising our kids, but raising is a less active verb than actually training. You know, if you're going to go train for an Olympic sport or even just my husband runs Tough Mudder, if he's going to go train for that, this is months of work and daily activity trying to prepare himself for that. So I would like to propose that training our children in the way they should go is actually an active verb.
Yes. And this is, I just want to say this up front. We just want to say this up front that we recognize that this is basically a new concept for a lot of parenting in today's culture. There's so much of our parenting that our grid for what parenting, it's potty training, not potty raising, says Zach.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Like, I mean, our daughter basically potty trained herself, but our boys not so much. Anyway, like we in this culture have had our paradigm of what parenting looks like basically set by friendship and by teachers, and we basically think like, therefore, what our paradigm of parenting looks like is cheerleading, friendship, and a little bit of teaching and hand-holding, and ultimately what we kind of described last week as getting our kids to adulthood safe, healthy, and alive. And that maybe is a little bit of an overstatement, but in a lot of cases, it's not much of an overstatement, unfortunately. But what the Bible tells us is that God's design for parents, and he's the one who created parenthood, his design for parenting is training our children in the way they should go. And so just a brief recap of last week to sum it all up, it really is that training our children, that the goal and foundation of it is connecting our kids to our voice. And because if we can connect our kids to our voice, first of all, it trains them to be connected to God's voice. And second of all, connecting them to our voice is lots more than just obedience training. It's actually securing our ability to influence and input into our kids' lives for all the good that our voice can and could and hopefully ought to do into our kids' lives. So it's not just so that I can boss you around. It's so that when your heart's hurt, I can help put it back together again. Or when you need direction for important decisions, I can actually give wisdom for those things. Or it's all kinds of good things. When I tell you I love you, you know that it carries weight and I mean it. You know, so it's all the good things that our voice can do in people's lives, in our kids' lives. Um, and and we talked about how training our kids really starts with training ourselves. And I think a lot of that is because it's training our kids in the way they should go. And so it starts with actually taking the time to learn and know what is that way. And how do we recognize when they're starting to veer one direction or another off of that way? And how do we consistently, steadily, over time, put up the boundaries that it help keep them on that way, while also teaching them what that way is and training them in how to walk in that way so that it becomes the way that they go. Where we finished last week was I kind of just dropped a little bomb in a simple statement, and that's where we're going to pick up this week, is this statement that we need, that training our kids starts with training ourselves, because whether we think we are or not, we are training our kids. And so we can train them intentionally and actively, or we can train them accidentally and passively, but we are training our kids for better or for worse, whether we think we are or not. And here's an example. There's a mom I know, saw her at a pool one time. She's like, hey, it's time to go. She's telling her son, it's time to go. And the son is 7, 8 years old, whatever. And he's just completely blowing his mom off. And the mom's trying all the tricks, like begging, pleading, bribing, threatening, get out now or I'll ground you for a week. Get out now and I'll get you ice cream on the way home. Like whatever it was, get out now or I'll come in and get you. Empty threats, like all these things. And there was literally no response. And it was hard for me to watch this happening, and knowing that the reason this moment was happening at all was because of how many moments in the past where the same promises or threats or boundaries were drawn with words but not backed up with action. And what that all those other instances did is it trained this son to not respond because he knew the words were empty.
Yeah, we can train our kids to listen to our voice